When I first started reselling, I never expected for it to grow into a full-time business. I just listed a few things here and there and waited for them to sell. As I started listing more and more, I started to realize how profitable reselling could actually be. And I started researching ways to make more money using my reselling business as a vehicle. Growing too quickly is typically frowned upon in the reselling community for some reason. And while I do agree that you need to be careful and to do it the right way, there's really nothing wrong with having big goals. When I started being super meticulous with my business, I noticed that my sales started doubling every single year. And what started as just a playful side hustle turned into a consistent six-figure business that allowed me to eventually quit my full-time job. If you're someone who has big money goals, I want you to know that it is totally possible and you're not crazy for feeling that way. My goal when I first started my YouTube channel was to just share everything that I wasn't getting from videos on YouTube, and every single venture that I've created since then still aligns with that goal. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you some things that I believe were the core actions that I took during my reselling growth phase that helped me to double my income every single year. Number one, I put everything on easy mode. I looked at everything in my business and I asked myself, is this as easy as it can be? I think simplicity is super undervalued in reselling because when I was learning and growing, I'd hear a new way of doing something every single day, and it was really hard not to get caught up in it. And even though I was consciously telling myself to stay the course, I still found myself aborting the mission and adding more to my plate. More is not always better. And if you're not careful, it can be really sneaky and slowly make your business more inefficient. And it's not always something obvious either. In fact, it's often something that seems like it would benefit your business, but really doesn't have any impact at all. I always use this example when I'm talking about this topic, but I started reselling with taking pictures just on a bed. No additional lighting, just a little light coming from a window. After seeing other people's setups and recommendations, I started adding a lot to that process. Photos on a bed turned into buying a fancy contraption so that I could hang accessories and pair stuff with it. Then I tried to scale back and just do a command hook on the wall. But then I felt like it wasn't good enough, so I started ordering lighting. By the way, multiple different types of lighting. I had umbrella lights, multiple different kinds. I had ring lights. And then after that, I still didn't feel like it was good enough. I decided that I needed to use a background remover. So I started removing the background off of all of my photos. And then later I thought maybe I could make it a little bit more efficient. Instead of background removing, I would use an app to bulk edit the brightness of the white behind the item. There is so much more I could tell you when it comes to photos, but fast forward to today, I now use just a command hook on a plain white wall with no additional lighting, which is basically the same way that I started. And I really wish I knew back then what I know now, which is more isn't always better. None of the solutions that I tried actually made me more sales. And if they didn't have an impact, then why was I even doing them at all? I actually made more sales by going back to basics because I was able to get more done. And I haven't had a single complaint from my buyers about my pictures. The setup didn't impact my sales because the results were still the same. The customer got a clear picture of the item. I heard somebody say the other day, and I'm kind of paraphrasing what they said, but they basically said, you're just trying to find a more sophisticated way of staying exactly the same. And that hit me so hard because that's exactly what I was doing in the beginning of reselling. And it's exactly what I see most resellers doing, but wondering why all their changes aren't making a difference. So to sum up the first point, I really think that the realization of how powerful simplicity can be helped me to grow super fast. I started focusing on how to make the most money in the least amount of time and how to essentially put reselling on easy mode. And by the way, I'm going to be doing a series soon showing you all the ways in which I put my business on easy mode. So don't forget to subscribe down below so that you'll be notified when those go live. So the photo setup story is just one very small way out of many where I cut out a lot of unnecessary steps in my business. Whenever I make decisions now, I look at it through a different lens, which is this as easy as it can be? Number two, I tracked everything. Part of what helped me uncover areas in my business that I'd overcomplicated was to track everything. And this isn't simply numbers, but it's timing as well. I started taking bookkeeping very, very seriously and made sure to have a meeting with myself each month to look over everything and see if there were things in my business that weren't lining up to what I thought was happening. As an example, maybe I plan to lower my average cost of goods from $5 to $4 that month, and I needed it to be that so that I would meet my net profit goals. So I'd put some strategies in place to lower my cost of goods, like swapping out 1 day a week for bins instead of going to regular thrift stores. I would use that strategy for about a month, and then I'd sit down to do bookkeeping, and I would actually make sure that my strategy worked, that I did in fact change my average cost of goods that month from $5 to $4. Being meticulous on tracking my numbers is the biggest thing that I attribute my business doubling each year, because I was no longer wondering if what I was doing was working. I actually knew and could pivot immediately instead of figuring out a year later that what I was doing wasn't working. Now, bookkeeping at the time that I started it seemed like a very, very overwhelming and scary task because I wasn't really sure where to start, where to get the numbers, and I honestly believed that it would take me days to sit down and figure everything out. It turns out that that's not true, and you can actually do your bookkeeping in 30 minutes or less each month if you just utilize the information that the platforms already gather for you. So I developed a system that worked for me with the lens of keeping everything on easy mode so that I would actually want to do it. And also keeping it simple by gathering only the numbers I needed and not the ones that didn't really make a difference. The spreadsheet I made, by the way, is one of the most requested things that you guys have been asking for on my channel for years. And I'm happy to let you know that I just made it available for purchase. If you're interested, you can check the link in the description for my bookkeeping spreadsheet plus video walkthroughs of exactly where to get the numbers to plug into that spreadsheet. So anyways, this spreadsheet removed my fear of numbers and helped me to see where I was or was not aligning with my goals. As I mentioned, I also started tracking my timing also with a spreadsheet so that I could see how long it would take me to do everything. And this really helped me also to course correct. It also makes it so much easier to plan a schedule when you know exactly how long every single task in your business should take you. So tracking everything, although super annoying, is extremely important if you want to grow quickly. Number 3, I became the person who already had the outcome. Instead of waiting until the outcome happened, aka making major money from reselling, I started operating like the person who already had it. And I know this sounds new agey, and I'm not talking about manifesting or anything like that, but asking myself during certain situations like, am I acting like this person now? So if back then my goal was, let's say 100K, am I doing things that a 100K seller would do? And if the answer was no, I started acting like that person. You see, we tend to wait until we have the outcome before we start taking action, but it's actually the actions that will get you the outcome. Would a 100K seller have a schedule to start work at 7 a.m. but then start at 9? No. Would a 100K seller be worried about buying a $100 label printer, even though it would save them time and money every single day? No, they would just buy the dang printer because the ROI is so much greater than the cost. Would a 100K seller pick up 20% sell-through rate items if their goal was 80% or higher sell-through rate? No, because they understand that the little exceptions add up. So just forcing myself to make that mindset shift helped me to take the action now that would allow me to get the outcome sooner. All right, you guys, I tried to really get down to the core of what I think made the biggest impact to my business over the last 10 years, and also just break it down in a way that no matter where you're at, if you want to double your income in the next year, these are the 3 main things that I would focus on. If you want to hear more, comment more down below because I do have more that I could go over with you if you want to hear them. Don't forget to subscribe down below if you want to be notified when new videos go live, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!